Psihudakis, and welcome to another episode of A Breath Fresh Marketing. I'm here today with Melissa Loschy. She is a jewelry designer who creates unique and innovative designs, including crowns and tiaras and other statement pieces. Hey, Melissa, welcome to the show.
Hi, so glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. It's cool because we have the same name, so it's pretty easy.
I was just going to say that.
So thanks so much for joining. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, my full name is Melissa Loschy. My business name is Loschy Designs, which is my last name. It's great because if you Google my last name, my business is the first thing to come up. There's not a lot of Loschys in the United States, but I'm from Southern California, grew up in Orange County, and I went to college for graphic design. So a lot of my influences kind of stem from that design education. And yeah, I've been working on my business full time since 2014 and wouldn't have it any other way. I love what I do, and I'm very honored that I get to do this for a living as opposed to another career.
That's great. Have you always been a creative person?
Since I could hold a marker or a crayon in my hand. Yeah, I would draw pictures of mermaids, and I made greeting cards. And then in the 90s, when the internet came around, we could use, or not so much the internet, but we would use KidPix, which was kind of the first graphic design software. So I would make illustrations that way. So I was a kind of multimedia inspired since a kid, and I grew up in a very creative family. So yeah, it was just always have been that way.
That's nice. So you're well known for making crowns and tiaras. Did you have a favorite Disney princess when you were growing up?
So I've been asked that question before, and it's so difficult because I actually was more drawn to the villains when I was younger. So really Maleficent has been my favorite. And granted, she's not wearing a crown, but she is wearing an elaborate headpiece.
Yeah.
But I probably liked her above all of the princesses, but I grew up in Orange County, so I would go to Disneyland all the time. We used to have season passes back when they were kind of affordable. And when they had them, because I guess they did away with them now. But I remember getting to meet Jasmine, the character of Jasmine. I always really liked her. Aurora. But Maleficent was my favorite, still is to this day.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, it's a very good villain to pick. So
for sure.
Where would you say your style inspiration comes from?
My style inspiration, for sure, probably for what I'm doing now, definitely stemmed from the different areas of art history I got to study when I was in college. So a lot of my inspiration comes from Art Deco and Art Nouveau time periods. So that's really how the crown business started. It was getting inspiration from the Roaring 20s and that kind of opulent design. So I still to this day get a lot of inspiration from early, 20th century design. But I also get it from traveling too. I used to travel a lot back when we could, and I would get a lot of inspiration from different cultures and historical arts and crafts movements in other countries. So it's kind of that combination of Art Deco and as well as sort of international design. That's where I get most of my inspiration from.
So I read that your jewelry business started out accidentally. So how did that happen exactly?
Yeah, so really it's twofold. My jewelry business, because I make jewelry and I make crowns, and the jewelry was kind of an effort that began after college because I create jewelry using a multimedia process using manipulated images. And so I did that starting pretty much in the early, the 2010s early. And then I would design a new collection twice a year. And I did a collection inspired by downtown LA and Art Deco, flapper style, whatnot. And we did a photo shoot with models in front of the buildings in downtown. And I wanted them to have some kind of headpiece that would tie in with their regular street clothes they were wearing, but then also to bring it into that 20s aesthetic. Mm-hmm. So I researched headpieces that models wore that dancers and performers wore in the 20s, went to the dollar store, threw together some headpieces using a gardening visor that I flipped up, spray painted it gold, And I used buttons and paper, straws, and put them on the models, and they photographed really well. I had no intention of selling them. These were just for fun. I was at a trade show, and the buyers saw the photos on the front of the catalog and asked if those were for sale. And I said, sure, yes, absolutely, those are for sale. Maybe I have something here. And then it took about a year or two to really refine the process. And obviously, my crowns that I sell to the public are not made out of those materials anymore. They're still kind of approachable, low-priced materials that I use, but I try to make things that last longer than that. But that's how it all started. Very humble beginnings, thanks to Daiso Japan and the 99-cent store. That's where I got all of my initial materials. And then things kind of just ran from there.
That's awesome.
Accidentally.
I love that. I love stories like that where something's born and you didn't even realize that it was going to come to be just because someone was like, hey, are you selling those? Well, actually, funny you should ask. I am, as of 2 seconds ago. So that's great.
Exactly. I think the inclination for most people is to be humble about it and be like, oh, I don't know, these were just for fun. But I was already building that entrepreneurial spirit, and I just immediately said yes. And thank goodness I did.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think it is about crowns and tiaras that seem to make people feel really special?
Yeah, so I think the idea that crowns can make people feel special stems back to our childhood. And because, I design crowns that are primarily for adults. I do have kids that will buy them. But I think personally, when I put a crown on, there's just something from my childhood, from playing dress up, from going to Disneyland and meeting Disney princesses, or drawing pictures of queens and all the fairy tales that we grew up reading, whether they're still appropriate or not. I think that there's just something ingrained in our spirit that when we put on a crown, you just automatically, maybe you feel a little bit silly, but I feel like it's just nostalgia that comes out. And because crowns are really not a necessity, you could argue, I argue that they are, but in the normal vernacular, they're not necessarily something that you have to have. But it's just such a frivolous thing that how can it not make you feel good when you put it on, even if it's just in front of the mirror for yourself, not for anybody else.
Definitely.
I think that nostalgia is the key.
Would you say that you get a lot of brides that order crowns and tiaras for their weddings?
For sure. Brides are kind of, especially now, with spring and summer approaching, brides are kind of cornerstone of my business. The difference between normal orders and bridal orders is that most brides want a custom crown. They want something that no one else has. Otherwise, bridal boutiques sell gemstone crowns and floral types of accessories. They come to me if they want something just a little bit more avant-garde, but they usually want something that, even if it's just a slight bit altered, bridal has been a big area of business for me. So absolutely.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. So how do you pick the images to start a new piece of jewelry? Do you sketch it out yourself, or do you think of something and then just make it from what you're thinking, or do you actually plan it out on paper or sketch pad or something?
For jewelry or for crowns? Or I can tell you, I can speak on either. Or
actually.
Yeah, so I'll start with just briefly with jewelry, because jewelry is what I've been doing for over a decade. I design jewelry similar to how I make my crowns. Everything is hand sewn, but my jewelry starts out with images on the computer. So all of my jewelry is inspired by places I've traveled to for the most part. So I take pictures when I travel, design and manipulate those images to create an interesting texture or a zoomed in image of a piece of architecture. I print it and then combine it with fabric and stitch everything together. So for the jewelry, that all starts with just getting inspired by a place that I'm traveling to. Historically, looking at the design, looking at the structures of natural land formations, that dictates the design. With crowns, my crown process is much more dictated by the materials that I find. So I design some crowns that are one of a kind. So oftentimes I'll go to an antique store or thrift stores and find old brooches or small items that could be turned into one of a kind crowns. But then I also design wholesale. So I have to think about, if I want to create this design, are these components that I can buy thousands of if this design were to be ordered by one company that wanted 50 to 60 of that product. But oftentimes things are kind of dictated by the materials, whether it be a crystal that I want to use or some kind of, I want to use spikes to create a spider-inspired crown. Like I did that last year. I have a Black Widow-inspired crown, so I knew that I wanted spikes and kind of webbed-shaped materials. It's kind of a combination of whether I want to use a brooch or something antique, or if I want to design something using materials that I know I can buy in bulk and sell at a wholesale level.
Yeah, that's neat. So on average, how long does it take you to create a crown?
But this is definitely the question that I get asked the most. And I feel like I always have a slightly different answer, but really the best way for me to answer that is there is no set time. When I am creating a new design, like a lot of times for my TikTok videos, I'll do crown recreation. So I'll see a crown from a movie and I really love that crown and I want to make my own version of it. That might take a couple of hours to look through my materials, kind of figure out if I need to buy something to create that crown. So that'd be a couple of hours. And then creating it from start to finish could take 1 hour to 8 hours, depending on what color paint I'm using, because some paints take 15 minutes to dry, some paints take 24 hours to dry. So interestingly enough, gold dries the fastest, black takes the longest to dry. So it's usually anywhere from a day to 2 days. And then sometimes if I'm sourcing material, that'll take longer. So there's no answer to that question other than it's a huge range in time. And then when it comes to actually producing an order, sometimes I can make 20 crowns in a day. Sometimes I can only make 4. And a lot of times I might have to do if there's something new on Netflix that I'm binging while I'm working. Other times I'm listening to music or a podcast. So a lot of times my environment, my audio environment can dictate how long it takes to make something too.
That's pretty cool. So you've made collections inspired by nature, art, history, and other interesting topics. Do you have a favorite collection that you've done so far?
Definitely. I definitely have some favorites. So of my jewelry collections, again, those are all designed by places I've traveled to. I would say Istanbul was probably my most favorite collection because Istanbul was the first country or place I traveled to that inspired a jewelry collection. So that one has a special place in my heart. That's kind of what helped me to rebrand my jewelry business. And then in turn, figure out that crowns were going to be something that I was going to design. So there's like a lot of, emotional feelings tied into that collection, but also Istanbul was an incredibly artistic, inspired place. And then for my crowns, similarly, I have a collection of crowns called blade crowns, which are kind of angular. They're my most probably recognizable editorial crowns. And those ones are the first ones that I started creating that kind of put my business and my creative vision for crowns on the map, just, in a small sense. But that's still the most recognizable style of crown I make. So that's the one I feel the most closest to.
That's pretty neat. And that's your best-selling one, the one with the spikes?
Yes, my blade crowns are definitely they're the best-selling. And I have about 12 different versions of it in different colors, different crystal choices. But those are the ones when I look back at my sales on Etsy or in wholesale or whatever, those are the ones that I've definitely sold the most of.
Oh, that's cool. So if you could live in any time period besides this one, which one would you choose?
That question is so difficult because I don't feel like I wouldn't want to live in any other time than now, just based on our advancements in technology. But if I could visit one, or if I could live in it and go back and forth, just like my crowns were inspired by the 20s, it would definitely be the heart of the Roaring 20s. So before the Depression was starting to settle in, during that time, just to see what fashion and to see skyscrapers being built, I get so much inspiration from that time. And I also, on the side, I am teaching, I'm an adjunct professor too, so I teach a graphic design class at the university I went to, which is Chapman University. And the first couple of weeks of class, we did a big deep dive into Art Deco history. And that kind of revived my my love for that area, that genre. I would loved to have seen what it was like to be in that time when electricity was really on the map and all the buildings in Los Angeles and New York were being constructed. It just must have been a very exciting time for design and just for entertainment and fashion.
Absolutely. So your pieces have been worn by some famous people. So Bebe, Rexha, Paris Hilton, and others. Did you know ahead of time that they were going to be wearing your designs, or were you completely surprised and were like, oh my God, that's my stuff?
Yes. So Bebe Rexha, I didn't find out she was wearing my crown in a video until a couple of years after that was filmed. So that most likely, she wore it in a music video. So most likely a stylist purchased it for me, and I didn't know that it was being used. Paris Hilton is unique because she actually bought a couple of my crowns that were carried by one of my retailers at the time, Dolls Kill. They were big in the festival, rave type of industry.
Okay.
She purchased a couple crowns that they carried. She was seen photographed at Coachella wearing a few of my styles, and someone who followed me on Instagram said, hey, I think Paris Hilton is wearing some of your crowns. And I thought, no way. And I looked, and sure enough, she had posted a couple photos. And so immediately I started liking them. I commented on the post, but at the time she already had millions of followers. I didn't think she was going to notice me. And then an hour later, I see Paris Hilton's followed me on Instagram. She's liked a bunch of my items and commented. She's like, essentially done a deep dive into my Instagram feed. And it's like, all of a sudden I see my notifications are all Paris Hilton. I'm like, what world is this? And so that was exciting. And then a few weeks later, I see that she DM'd me and was just like, hey, babe, I love your crowns. At the time she was DJing in Ibiza, got to say it the right way, in Spain. And she was gearing up for her summer residency, and she reached out and said she wanted me to design a bunch of crowns for her to wear during her performances. And I said, yes, of course. And it started off with her just sending me about maybe 15 different crown designs. And then after weeks and weeks of her deep diving through my Instagram, the order ended up being more than 30 crowns.
Wow.
Some were ones that were crowns that I had made when I first started. So the originals were made out of those same dollar store materials. So I had to kind of, I'm not going to send Paris Hilton crowns that were made from something that could easily fall apart. So I had to revisit those styles. But she wore them all, and she even just would randomly post about me on Instagram. She really helped to grow my following. It doubled my following in a month. And just continually, even, it died down a little bit after that. Initially, that was the summer of 2017. But still, periodically throughout the year, she was wearing them, tagging me. So that one I didn't know about at first, but then once we started working together, I was, I knew she would be posting pictures eventually of wearing various crowns that I had made for her.
And she actually got engaged wearing one of your crowns. So that's a really big moment for her and for you.
Yes. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, so that was interesting. So back in April, she placed another order with me. Same way. She doesn't order anything online. She just sends me images of what she wants. And she had ordered a couple of different versions of my Ariel tiara. I actually have a couple of crowns and tiaras inspired by Disney characters. And I think she ordered about 18 crowns. I'm not sure. It was a decent amount. And I knew she was traveling she told me she was going on a vacation for her birthday. And I thought in my mind, like, I wonder if she's going to get engaged, because it was her 40th birthday. And I woke up to that day, the day that she got engaged, or I'm assuming she got engaged a couple of days before, and had a photographer do their engagement pictures. It was early in the morning. I was gearing up to preparing my lesson for my students, who I teach Monday and Wednesday. So I think this was a Wednesday morning. I saw it, and then that's when I started seeing all the articles that had been written about, and I was still gearing up for this class, and I had to kind of shield my excitement because I was about to be teaching my students, and I didn't want to be too silly because I was so excited. But that was really an exciting day. And the fact that her team even included my name in the press release that went out, that's how it got into Vogue, into People magazine, the Daily Mail. It was a very exciting day. I had no idea she was going to wear it during those photos.
That's so awesome. If you can design a crown for any celebrity other than the ones that you have, which are wonderful, well-known celebrities, who else would you want to design a crown for? Anyone in particular?
Yeah, definitely a handful. I've always said Rihanna is one. I just honor, just like so many people. I think she would just look incredible in a crown. And I'm making one for a TikTok video that's just inspired by her, that has pastel colors and is a mixture of hard and soft. But she's definitely top of the list. I would love to design for Sia. I love her music, and I think her combination of performance art and music is so interesting. Would love to design something for Miley Cyrus, Billie Eilish, anybody that's kind of has a unique view in the music industry that's not your typical like folk singer. Anybody that's edgy, I'd love. But also anybody that was ever going to be attending the Met Gala. So think of the handful of stars that are always photographed at the Met Gala. That would be a huge goal of me, to design something for a celebrity that would be worn on the red carpet.
I know that Billie Eilish always wears stuff with Gucci logos all over. You'd have to make her crown of like Gucci logos all over it.
Maybe if I did that, yeah, that's certainly could. I mean, she's worn a crown. I mean, obviously we all know her song.
Yeah.
So I could see her in one, but that would be fun if that could happen.
That's awesome. And I love all those artists that you mentioned. That's my same taste in music. So that's good choices. So,
thanks.
Besides crowns and tiaras, what are some of the other things that you might want to design that you haven't had a chance to, or any thoughts on designing anything else that's similar or even different?
Definitely. So things that I would love to design are not so much accessories. I feel like the possibilities are endless with crowns. So that, to me, I can always strive for something, for different technologies. And I also work, my dad is a 3D printer. He's retired now, so that's what he does. He works on full time just for fun. And he and I have collaborated on some future ideas for 3D printed crowns. But outside of the accessory fashion type of medium, I would love to design experiential spaces. So one of the things I love to do, I haven't really sold at a lot of in-person events in the last year, but I love doing trade shows. For the longest time, I was exhibiting at RuPaul's DragCon, which was in Los Angeles and New York. So I love selling in person. And part of the reason is I love to design the space that I'm selling in. And when you're selling at a convention, you can really get creative with your space. And I've loved to think about not giant spaces, but I love a 10 by 10 space to think about how can I make a wall look like it's entirely holographic and made up of diamonds, but using holographic plates. That's essentially what I did for one of my events. So I love designing spaces that look a certain way, but use materials that are completely unexpected or super cheap. That would definitely be a goal. Something, whether it's in a gallery or I don't even know what would constitute that or what the context would be, but space design is something I do really like.
Yeah, that's really neat, very unique. So what's on the horizon for you?
Horizon now, the biggest thing is just continuing to grow my business. Using TikTok has really been like the biggest influence of 2020, because now I have an audience where I can experiment and make fun designs that are not always about selling the design. Could this just be something for fun? So continuing to do that, like fun projects that are just for content. But also, biggest thing probably is I am newly engaged. My fiance and I are going to be planning a wedding. We're hoping April of 2022. So designing a crown for my wedding is going to be a huge thing, or multiple crowns for my wedding. And I've been involved in so many of my friends' weddings. I've been to a million weddings. So thinking of my own that's something I'm very excited about this year. And biggest thing, I told my fiance that as wedding favors, I want every single woman at my wedding to get a crown. So there's going to be a crown table where during the ceremony, anybody can come up and take their crown.
Congratulations on your engagement. And
Thank you.
Are you going to invite Paris Hilton? Should.
You know what? If she invites me to hers, then I'll definitely have to invite her to mine.
You're like, hey, I'm going to give out crowns at my wedding, so you have to make it. And she'll
absolutely.
Do it for you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome, and that's a very exciting time in your life. So it'll be nice for you to plan out what your dream wedding is going to look like with beautiful crowns. I'm sure it's going to be lovely. So
absolutely.
So where can people find you for your jewelry and your crowns? What are the best social media handles and websites?
Yeah, so what I tell people usually, if they want to find all of my various platforms, if you Google my last name or my business name, which is Loschy, Loschy, my website will show up. But my website I sell through Etsy, so it's just Loschy, Loschy.etsy.com. That's where you can buy my jewelry and my crowns. And I even have some home decor and other sorts of crown accessories. And then on TikTok, the same, I'm Loschy Designs. And Instagram, also Loschy Designs. Those are the platforms I'm most active on. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Pinterest. But Instagram and TikTok are where every day I'm usually active in some aspect.
Well, that's great. Oh, awesome. Melissa, you do beautiful work. Thank you so much for being on the show today. And very cool that you have Paris Hilton, one of your best and most loyal customers. So I wish you the best with getting more celebrities as your customers as you go. And I hope you have a beautiful wedding.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This was honestly such a fun thing. I love having conversations about crowns. So this was excellent. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes, of course. Awesome. All right. Take care. And thanks so much for being on the show.
Of course.